Spoilers ahead for Captain Marvel, if you've yet to see it by now. So I mentioned on this channel before that I'm done watching Marvel trailers, and that started right around the time when Captain Marvel came out a couple months ago. So I went into this movie with no idea what it was even about. I was loosely familiar with the character from the comics, but by loosely familiar I mean that I knew she existed and was extremely powerful, but that's about it. And despite not seeing any footage for Captain Marvel whatsoever going into it, my expectations were still quite high considering what the MCU has given us thus far, and considering that Endgame was right around the corner at the time I went to see Captain Marvel. And honestly, Captain Marvel surpassed those high expectations. Throughout the first act, I was interested in where it was going, as I wasn't quite sure who to trust or where Carol's journey was leading her to, but by the final act, the movie just completely skyrocketed for me. When the photon inhibitor is removed from Carol's neck and we see the full extent of her powers as she uses them to destroy the Kree, I was loving this movie. Because Carol was raised as Veers, a Kree warrior who was told that her powers were a gift that could be taken away. Her entire life she fell to the ground and was dismissed as a woman who couldn't stand up and fight on her own. But of course, by the end we learn that Carol can get up. When Carol learns the truth about the Kree, she immediately uses everything in her power to take them down. She quickly finds her inner strength and finds the courage to stand back up, a quality that was always instilled in her. She was never really Veers, and she knew that, because she's able to trust those around her and remember her past. Similar to Bucky Barnes, Captain Marvel remembers. I love that this film took its time building up to a massive finale. In the beginning, Carol is just a standard run-of-the-mill superhero who can shoot photon blasts out of her hands. Cool. But by the end of the film, she can do this. This movie led us there gradually, and it felt 110% rewarding to bring it to the moment where Carol uses her full abilities. I thought Brie Larson was phenomenal at playing this strong female lead. It felt like she owned the role and wore it naturally. Still, I wasn't sure if I loved Carol after seeing this film, but I knew I was close. Once Avengers Endgame came out though, I knew I was in love. Her first appearance is one of my favorite scenes in this movie. When we see it's Carol floating outside the ship staring directly into the eyes of Tony Stark, it was then that I realized that she felt like part of this massive franchise's family. In Endgame, she felt like a big sister there to protect the ones around her. She's brave and doesn't hesitate to serve and protect those around her. Qualities that we saw her gain in Captain Marvel. When the Avengers tell her to find Tony, she flies away and brings him and Nebula back. When she listens to how much Thanos has hurt the Avengers and the destruction he's caused to the universe, she simply leaves, stating she's off to kill him.
Where are you going?
To kill Thanos.
When she sees the Avengers going against Thanos and his army, at the end of the film, she destroys his entire ship. Her powers alone are obviously incredible, but her willingness to use them to help in any situation she can to protect the universe is what makes her powers rewarding to see on screen. And I also want to point out that her brief encounter with Peter Parker in Endgame was adorable. She again reminded me of the big sister there to help her family.
Peter Parker.
Hey, Peter Parker. You got something for me?
And I love Captain Marvel. And just to keep this video somewhat self-aware, yeah, I've watched countless videos and arguments claiming the exact opposite points of what I've mentioned in this video, stating that Carol is an extremely bland and uninteresting character, that Brie Larson was miscast, that there's nothing special or interesting about her. And yeah, sure, I can make an entire video defending each specific point that people have against her, but that's not something I want to do right now. Because to those people hating on Captain Marvel, I have nothing to prove to you.
My name is Carol. I've been fighting with one arm tied behind my back. But what happens when I'm finally set free? I'm coming to end it. The war, the lies, all of it.